Hi, welcome to Historical Cooking Adventures, and I'm Pete. Today we've just finished our drill for the 73rd Regiment Foot for tomorrow's Tocal event, Peek into the Past. Our correspondent Belinda has pulled one of our members aside for a quick interview. Mr Brad Manera has been a senior historian and curator for the Anzac Memorial. He's also done tours for Sydney and abroad for Australian battlefields in the last 100 years. Here's his interview.
Oh, I never grew out of playing with toy soldiers, I think. I'm always fascinated by the things that people ascribed value to. I grew up with my grandparents, and the Second World War was alive and well in my grandmother's broom closet, because that's where my grandfather kept the Japanese carbine that he'd brought back from New Guinea. So, you know, open any drawer in their bedroom, and it was either his false teeth or a clip of 6.5mm ammo. His uniform was still hanging up. He never wore it, but it was still there. So, you know, I just got intrigued by objects and the stories they tell, and so reenactment became a way of thinking about the past. I mean, you know, we're play acting, but there's an element of practical archaeology about it, if you like. Well, I guess my interest has always been Western Australians at war, from the colonial period through to the end of the Second World War. Any more recent than that, and you can talk to veterans. So yeah, it was very useful using reenactment as a tool just to think, particularly I suppose, about the 17th century, the Dutch survivors of the Dutch shipwrecks off the western coast of the continent, and then I guess more recently the Napoleonic Wars, because they had an enormous impact on Australia, 12,000 miles away. And you know, we know that we're a transported British colony, and some 5,500 of the convict population were veterans of the Napoleonic Wars. So what sort of cultural baggage are they bringing with them? You know, they know how to work a musket. You know, their rations, their clothing is the same as they were wearing when they were on service. So yeah, it's just a way of investigating the past, I guess. Well, you know, I suppose when you're dealing with a fairly non-literate body of people, you've got to use the sort of artefacts that have been left behind in museums, the work of artists, but that, of course, you know, appreciating that there's a filter. So, you know, and occasionally there were literate private soldiers. And so I guess I remember my first year at uni, a lecture by an extraordinary historian named Tom Stanage, where he described the role of the historian as that of a beachcomber walking along a stretch of the coast after a shipwreck and picking up pieces of yards and spars and fragments of deck planking and trying to imagine what the ship was like. There's a huge amount of interpretation going on. So I guess that's, you know, we take those little pieces and try and make sense of them. Probably going to Waterloo for the bicentenary, just getting a sense of the ground, and experiences like having French cavalry reenact a charge on the square that we were occupying, and realising how quiet they were. There'd been a great deal of precipitation, as there had been back in 1815, and the ground was wet. The grain crop was sort of waist height, and the cavalry were almost silent. They were within metres before we appreciated that there was 300 horsemen drawing down on us. So, you know, that was extraordinary. I had read accounts of the 63rd getting caught in the open at Quatre Bras by cavalry and thinking, how can that possibly be? You know, you hear bodies of horsemen, the ground vibrates beneath them in Australia because our ground is usually dry and hard. In Europe, it's totally different, and I guess that was a really revealing moment. Look, all reenactments are different. I think the great thing about Waterloo was actually being on the site. That was really important. You know, we can dress up in Australia as if we're reenacting a Napoleonic experience, but being on the ground just adds another dimension, a greater appreciation. Ooh, what's my favourite kit? Look, I think it's got to be Napoleonic. I guess because so few Napoleonic other ranks were literate, and so there's a real sense of investigation. Although I'm enjoying the 17th century, I guess because I started my museum career at the Western Australian Maritime Museum, where we were investigating shipwrecks from the 17th century. So that's been kind of fun, playing with matchlock muskets and learning a little about the pike and blade drill that they were using, and trying on the musket, the plate armour and so on that was worn at the time. Ask yourself why you want to do it. I guess some people are here because it's a gun club with a bit of variety. Others are here just for the fellowship. Others, I suppose, are investigating history in their own way. I think, you know, have a go. If you don't like it, you can always walk away. Oh, gee, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I'd be kind of curious to think about retracing Burke and Will's trek with camels. You know, just with, you know, Colt 51 navies and you know, just sort of trying to get a sense of the sort of challenges that they faced, the logistics of trying on an expedition of that nature with the sort of equipment that they were using. I think that'd be but then if going overseas, then, you know, I guess I'd really like to go to Seringapatam. You know, I guess being involved with the 73rd Regiment, I'd like to see the site of their most famous battle honour and the sort of impact it had on the Australian colonists of that second decade of the 19th century. Thanks for your interest.
That was our interview with Brad Manera. Next week, we'll be releasing the interview with Nat Barbuto. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell.